Hello, my name is Tommaso Polio, music producer for the Spirit in Action YouTube channel. The relatable other half of the Spirit in Action team, writer and counsellor, Claire. Welcome, Claire.
Thank you, Tommaso. Lovely to see you again.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to see you too. These podcasts are companions to the daily meditations that we produce freely on YouTube. The aim of these discussions are to further clarify what was read out. Today, we talk further on day 11, encouraging good relationships. As always, I'll open with a quote from the meditation itself. The foundation of any relationship is trust, and you can't build trust without open communication. What is trust, Claire?
Well, trust can be defined as a belief in the truth, ability, reliability, or strength of someone or something. We tend to trust people who are caring towards us, people with integrity, and certainly when their actions correlate to their words. So if in a relationship we trust our partner, if they're reliable and honest. Basic trust really is developed in early childhood, even from a baby. A baby raised by, they've done lots of psychological assessments and experiments with this. And a baby raised by adults who try to meet the needs of the baby consistently learn to develop trust by the end of their first year. It's necessary for the healthy psychological development of children to secure attachment patterns to their parents, basically.
Why is it necessary, Claire?
Well, basically it's necessary for the psychological development of children to secure attachment patterns to their parents or caregivers, really to reach good levels of trust. Early childhood negative experiences such as abuse, mentally or physically, outbursts of rage, parents or caregivers not delivering their promises can contribute to a child's distrust and expectations of future betrayals and lead the child really to a lack of confidence in themselves.
So is that why people find it difficult to trust people? Again?
Well, that's where it starts from. So all the scars really have a profound influence and impact on our life, albeit unconsciously. So intimate relationships are built on the possibility of honesty and openness. It is like the glue that holds a relationship together, basically. It's like a positive emotional connection between partners based on loyalty, love, and affection. And that stimulates neuropeptides, particularly oxytocin in the brain, that encourages bonding between mother and child. Also, sexual exchanges between partners that are loving and affectionate also release oxytocin, which is neuropeptide that helps make people more trusting, which is fairly interesting. Mixed messages, for example, create confusion, anxiety, and alienation, and break down trust, which is why communication is so important.
So how do we rebuild all this if we haven't had a good start?
Most people's reaction to a partner who's lying or distrustful, for example, are mostly based on the past experiences with parents who may have betrayed their trust. Deception or betrayal of trust can have a more damaging effect on a relationship than an affair itself. That's very important. The critical inner voice becomes stronger, and it is the culprit that triggers trust issues. The antidote to deception is openness, honesty, and accountability. When we're straightforward in asking for what we want in a relationship, we can feel more vulnerable and open to both loving and being loved. But we also need to be less defensive in communicating with our partners and strive to be more transparent and honest in all our personal interactions, however hard it is. Building trust is not without risk. It takes you and others or your partner risks to prove trustworthiness. Acknowledging your feelings, learning the lessons and taking action is a key to building trust.
So what I wanted to ask is, okay, let's say it hasn't had a good start and you didn't really have a good...
So how do you build it?
Yeah, how do you build it if you have... Yeah.
Well, to build trust with your partner, you've got to say what you mean and mean what you say, basically. Often in early childhood, we would have come across adults that know better. We believed them, and our own self-trust becomes built on that. And we can become conditioned to seek guidance and approval. Consequently, many of us face self-doubt, can become indecisive, perfectionists, fear of failure, and the desire of approval. So our self-trust becomes buried beneath a belief that everyone knows better.
So you were just talking about this encouraging good relationships. It all depends on how the first year of your life.
Well, the first year is vitally important.
Okay, so we've gathered that the first year is vitally important. But I mean, most people have no control on their first year of life, really. They're really vulnerable to their caregiver.
Yeah, that's right.
First year of your life, you really don't have much choice. I mean, as we go older, we create our own boundaries and go, okay, this is not right. I don't want this anymore. But, you know, our first year of life, we're basically vulnerable to whatever we are bound to, and we don't have much choice at all. How does one... What I find is I don't find any solace in knowing that the first year of your life sets up how you relate with other people. Basically because the first year of your life you have no choice on who you are stuck with. What does one do when you've had no choice?
Well, we're here to learn lessons.
Okay.
So basically we have a choice as we go older to decide to use our pain as an opportunity to grow or consume us. Use your pain to push you forward, to transform you to a better future.
Using this pain to evolve ourselves.
Yes, because our hurt can pry us open and let the light in, basically.
And therefore we can then redesign our relationships.
Absolutely.
With ourselves and others.
Well, we can use that energy to grow psychologically, basically to undergo life-changing shifts.
My question was, then we have the ability to make choices that will enhance our life
Yeah, we can
around
channel
us.
our pain to explore our feelings and understand them.
Right, because at the moment, you know, saying the first year of your life is formed by parents, I guess I feel better knowing that later on the pain or the mistakes your parents make, because every parent makes mistakes, whether they're perfect or not, you know, they're human. But there is a choice later on that you can repair things, basically.
Yes, because if we look for the lessons, we can learn how to take our power back. We have to look at the root cause of our hurts.
And so most of our lives, most people aren't, basically they're living through life with blinkers, not realizing that...
That's right.
All this shit that's happening to you. And like what you said a lot was different people but playing the same game. So you're in this constant circle of attracting a person that will do the same thing to you.
Yes, we are different people who play the same game constantly until we learn it.
And then that's where you can stop the cycle.
Well, it changes the cycle because the more you become aware of it, it doesn't stop the feelings coming up. But you're able to handle them. You can let it go more easily and let it move on.
And see the pattern and go, hang on, this is a different person, but this is the same thing's happening again. Is that when you become more aware?
Self-trust really becomes buried beneath a belief that everyone knows better than you. We become weakened by a constant desire to receive external validation. Our own self-trust becomes buried
Right.
Basically, it becomes weakened basically by our desire to seek approval or validation.
Oh, I see. Okay, so for example, let's say your first year of your life, you got a lot of love from one side of the parent, but the other side of the parent was missing. Let's say, for example, this is just an example, your mother showed you the love, but your dad was distant. So that set up your whole life for...
Or it creates the same scenarios, just different people.
So you start attracting people who, therefore, the unrequited love thing happens a lot with people?
Well, it can be, yeah. I mean, to redesign our relationships, the first thing we have to do is become conscious. We have to become conscious of our own unconsciousness.
So
that real positive growth comes from our action and a willingness to change, to turn your pain into power. I mean, pain can only feed on pain. It cannot feed on joy. So you need to bring the light of your consciousness into your pain. Otherwise, you basically relive it over and over.
Can you give me an example?
Well, let's just say you feel betrayed by your partner. Now, you can keep reliving that over and over and bring it into every relationship you have.
Yes.
Or you can bring the light of your own consciousness into it and turn that pain into power so that you can overcome it. So you can find your innermost strength. And to do that, you have to access being present. That's the way you dissolve the pain.
Being present dissolves the pain.
So if we don't stop what we're doing, everything will continue as it was. Stopping what you do and changing your thoughts, beliefs and actions grows our consciousness and lets in the light.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. But that can't happen until you open up to and realize and see the patterns.
Well, we have to start to look at the pain and see what it's saying to us. And if it keeps coming to us, we're not learning the lesson.
So I guess the job when you see a counsellor or therapist is you've come to a point where I'm ready to
Look
face
at
this.
what's going on.
Look at what is going on.
And you don't need to see someone to do that necessarily.
Oh, really?
Well, you can become conscious of those things yourself and start to look at them.
Oh, that's wonderful. So becoming aware.
As part of awareness is becoming the watcher watching yourself.
But most of the time, most people need a bit of a help.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they don't. All I'm saying is it's not the only way to deal with it.
Yes, not one pill fixes all. What does one do when you see it in other people and you're going, oh, well, they're doing the same, like a friend who does the same mistake over, and you can see it happening and you know you want to say, look, but they don't want to hear it. Do you just leave it?
Well, what is the thing that people learn from the most?
When something hurts them, they
Well,
learn.
what teaches people more than anything? Example. Be the example for those people. That's probably what changes people more than anything, is be
Instead
the
of
example.
telling them.
Well, telling them is just trying to control them.
And therefore...
We may have a duty of care to say certain things, but it's really none of our business on one level.
Oh, that's good.
Where they are. You be the example that they need.
Yes.
I think I told you the story of this guy who came to stay with me, and he was an alcoholic, and he was a very dear friend. I loved him very much. And I knew when he came with his girlfriend. They'd been together for probably 20, 30 years or something, that she was hoping that he'd get off alcohol and nagged him all the time. And I just wanted to keep trying to save him and say, come on, do this, try this, do that. And then I realised that he got so much nagged that actually what he needed was nothing, just some love and care. Not saying anything. And I did that, and it was very hard, but I did that. And what I found was after a while, because they stayed for a couple of months, after a while, instead of drinking at 9 in the morning, it went to 12, and then from 12 it went to 2. He started to transform himself because he was receiving some unconditional love and care. So sometimes part of a healing isn't maybe always what we think is needed. Well, you don't need to try and understand it if you're trying to help them and give them love. I mean, I know why that person did it. They'd been severely physically abused as a young boy.
And that's their way of
at their boarding
coping.
School. Yeah.
That's the way of coping.
But anyway.
So it worked.
Well, it did work, and it taught me a big lesson.
Is that the same thing with people on drugs?
Can be. It depends.
Or any sort of self-destructive?
Can be any situation. It's about trying not to assume and trying not to assume what they feel or where they're coming from and what their reasons are for being there. It's trying to give them love. I think love is probably the most powerful healer. I think I told you the story of when I was sharing a house with a friend of mine who had a little kid, and the loveliest person in the world and very intelligent, but completely the most messiest person I've ever met in my life. And I'm completely the opposite. I like things in order to know where they are. But it was my biggest lesson because I realised after a while, either I could keep doing everything because it never, everything she got hold of would never ever be put back anywhere. And that was whether it was a nappy or anything else. So either I could do it and help, or I could do nothing, but then it wouldn't get done, or I could leave. So for a long time I just did it. But then in the end I decided to move house. But it was a great lesson in learning to let go of control and let someone else be as they are.
That they want to be, so she wanted to be like that.
Well, I think in many ways it was her way of being defensive.
So that's another option, walk away from that situation.
Yeah. You always have a choice in those things, how you want to. You can't force someone to do something. They have to wake up and make a choice themselves. And who's to say it's right or wrong?
That's right. So the best way to encourage good relationships is to create a good relationship first with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And understand why you attract these painful relationships in the past.
That's right.
And go, so why was I attracted to this person? Why did I go through it with this person? Why all these people that well, for my example, I think most of teenagers, 20s and 30s was on unrequited love. It's always... Yeah. So I saw that. And then I went through a period of doing this to other people where I felt the love from people, but I was the one that wasn't giving the love.
I think we often attract both sides just for us to learn and see what it feels like.
Okay, before you finally open up and hopefully have a relationship.
Yeah, that's why I say deception or betrayal of trust can have a more damaging effect on our relationships than an affair itself.
Yes.
Well, let's say someone's had an affair. So that deception of betrayal and trust can be more damaging on the relationship than the affair itself.
Because it's hit a core in your being that you feel that the world has betrayed, the universe has betrayed you. And that could
then, of course, the critical inner voice of ourself becomes stronger than the culprit that triggered our trust issues.
Therefore, closing doors to other relationships?
Well, that's why the antidote to deception is openness, accountability, and honesty.
Honesty. And therefore you'll attract the more honest relationships into your life.
Yes, because the more straightforward in asking for what we want in a relationship, we can feel more vulnerable and open to both loving and being loved. Also need to be less defensive in communicating with our partner and strive to be more transparent and honest in all our personal interactions, however hard it is. When we're straightforward in asking for what we want in a relationship,
Yes.
we can feel more vulnerable and open
So for example, you meet
to
someone...
both loving and being loved.
Right. So for example, you meet someone, lay down the...
Well, it's about being straightforward and honest. The more defensive in communicating with our partner, the worse it is. The more open we are and the more transparent and honest we are in our personal interactions, however hard it is, helps the relationship enormously. Building trust is not without risks.
As in risks? What do you mean by risks?
We have to take risks to prove our transparency and trustworthiness. Building trust is not without risks. It takes risks to prove trustworthiness, basically. We have to acknowledge our feelings and learning the lessons and taking actions to building trust.
So, for example?
Well, if there's been an issue of, say, an affair or something, let me give you an example. If one of the partners is very jealous and the other partner is always looking at flirting in a really open way. Now, on one level, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's making the person who's jealous feel inadequate, then it really doesn't cost anything to be nice to that person and pleasant and make time for that person to feel more comfortable.
And explain to them,
Well,
if you're open about, I'm feeling jealous because you keep looking at other people, and then the other person, well, I'm sorry, there's...
Well, the other person says, but you're beautiful and I love you, and, makes them feel cared for.
You're not in any danger of being...
Yeah, then that's going to devalue their fears.
But the important thing is there has to be communication.
Got to be open communication.
And not just sulking off or suddenly acting out, and then the other person goes, well, where did that come from?
That's right.
Not realising. So the important thing in a good relationship is communication.
Very important.
No matter, and I guess what you mean by risks is the risk of you sounding childish. Like, for example, one might feel a bit childish saying, look, I'm feeling jealous.
Yes, about showing your vulnerabilities.
I get
and
it
your
now.
Insecurities and being honest in that.
And there's a risk in that, in looking
But
silly.
without that, then you can't really build an authentic, real relationship. Not just with a partner, but even friends. I mean, it's...
Yes, especially with friends.
The more intimate you can be,
yes,
the more real it is.
Another question I ask, I've also come across friends who are your best friend and great friends, and then all of a sudden they're not. And there's no explanation. And then you ask for an explanation and you've basically been ghosted. What's that about?
Well, that's about them for a start.
Okay.
And I mean, you can either say, I feel like something's changed in our relationship. Have I done anything? What is going on? Never blame the other person. And either they're willing to talk or they're not. You've got no control over that response.
You just have to learn to let that go. If they're
not going to respond, what can you do?
That's right. I guess it's their shit, basically, of being...
Well, I always say, if you've done something wrong and you know it, do something about it. If not, let it go.
Again, like what you're saying, taking a risk to make you feel...
Showing your authenticity and vulnerability.
Okay, so if the person stops talking to you, stops replying your messages, you go, I'm sorry, what have I done wrong?
Well, yeah, and you may not have done something wrong, but that's irrelevant in a sense.
It's all about rejection too, isn't it?
As I say, that comes from... basically, if we don't develop secure patterns from early childhood, there's going to be some problems.
And from early childhood, you have no control over. So once you realise, oh, well, I've had no control over that, but now is my chance to have control. And that only happens when you grow up and you have some sort of independence. Then you have your boundaries set, and then you can start to heal those old wounds. And what you're saying is basically, we're basically meant to feel, to learn. We've all come here to learn something, and those were placed there for us to learn.
Well, it only keeps coming to you if you haven't learnt.
And often you say that sometimes in this lifetime it doesn't. Some people just don't learn until the next.
Well, that's right. It's all about growth, isn't it? People grow at different stages in different ways. It's not right or wrong, it just is.
So can we go back to how we can build trust and build better relationships?
Okay, so the first thing is be true to your words. So honour your commitments. Don't make promises you can't keep. Second one, communicate effectively. Be clear about commitments. Build trust gradually. Take small steps. Don't expect too much too soon. Make decisions carefully. Think before committing. Have the courage to say no. Mm-hmm. Be organised so you can honour commitments. Be consistent. Trust is built from consistency. Participate openly. Listen actively. Give feedback respectfully. Show your willingness to trust.
That's an important thing. How do you give feedback without offending someone?
Well, it's about being honest and authentic, but it's the way you say something, isn't it?
Yeah. For example, let's talk about
so if we don't blame someone for something, but I had this, a guy came to me the other day and told me this situation that occurred between him and some family members. And he had basically ended up being shut down. This person had said their point of view and then said, okay, we'll leave it now, but I don't want to talk about it ever again.
What?
So they were left with nothing.
That's not fair, is it?
Well, whether it's fair or not, that's what it was. So either they could let it go, which is very, very hard.
Yes.
So I suggested to them that they just wrote a very nice letter or text and basically said, I appreciate your point of view and where you're coming from, and I honour it. However, I just need to say this has left me feeling no closure and a feeling of invalidation. So I need to just say this, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Now that's done, I'm happy not to talk about it again.
Move on.
And I wish you and your family love and support. Just something like that. Otherwise, if he hadn't done that, it's very easy to say just let go, but you need to be at a certain stage where you can do that.
The energy has been blocked and you need to release it.
On the whole, it's better not to write anything. It's better to talk. But this person wouldn't have talked face to face. And it worked.
It let go.
Well, he was able to let go.
Yes.
And she responded favourably, so...
Oh, really?
By not responding, basically. There was no more war when they saw each other later.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay. That makes sense now.
So, be consistent. Trust is built from consistency.
Consistency as in just the way you act?
Yeah. Participate openly. Listen actively. So give feedback respectfully. Mm-hmm. Help people. Authentic kindness builds trust. Show your feelings. Be open about your emotions. Showing you care builds trust in you. Practice emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence.
Seeing what you do.
And realise, I'm being a child here. I'm sulking.
Yeah.
If you sulk, so for example, emotional intelligence is like if someone starts sulking because you think their partner is flirting, so you just sulk, and the other person's going, "What's wrong with them?" And you just go silent.
Well, emotional intelligence is basically being aware of what you do and why you're responding and reacting the way you do.
Okay.
So avoid self-promotion. Constant self-promotion degrades trust. Recognizing others builds trust and good relationships. Do what you believe is right. Sacrificing your values degrades trust. Honesty is respected. Yes, people basically aren't trusted.
And also the other person gets tired if you just go, well, what do you, yeah.
And the last one, admit mistakes. Honesty encourages trust. Showing vulnerability builds trust. So the very things we want, we often don't get because we're not being honest and authentic.
Yes.
So it requires a lot of self-reflection and making decisions in ourselves, how we want to be. I often think of certain kinds of autism and stuff where they don't have the ability to show any feelings. And one of the things they teach them is they have a whole wall of cards showing different expressions. So they have to learn what it looks like to smile, and that means happy. What angry looks like.
Oh, wow.
All these things, so they learn. And in a sense, we have to learn.
What does jealousy feel like? What does rejection feel like? What is betrayal?
How does that make me feel? What's going on in me?
That's interesting. That's a really good point. Then you see your patterns and go, okay, I've
see your patterns more clearly.
Triggers and go, okay.
See our triggers.
I'm feeling unloved. This is the whole
Understand it's not about now. Someone or something's just been a trigger for that.
And this is my opportunity to learn and move on rather than not learn and do it again with a different person until.
So self-trust and self-love is very important. It shows an amount of consciousness and awareness.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you so much for that wonderful dialogue on encouraging good relationships.
Well, it's a bit all over the place, but...
Okay, so that's the ending of the podcast for encouraging good relationships. If you want to discuss this more, you can either comment on the link below or get in touch with Claire personally. She's got a Facebook page and you can message her and make a time for an appointment. If you live in Perth, Western Australia, she is very available to make a time to see you and to work through these issues and hopefully shine a light on
at the end of the tunnel.
At the end of the tunnel. If you're not in Perth, she also works by Zoom or Skype or phone. She works internationally as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye.